Let food be your medicine. Yes, we have to repeat it like a mantra because it is really very important. And so we talk about it again with Adriano Panzironi and Dr. Cristiano Orlando. We're going to launch the topic of this block, the intestinal disorders. Let's look together the introductory video.
Intestinal disorders affect almost 8 out of 10 Italians and manifest themselves with various symptoms, all of which can be traced to intestinal dysbiosis. In fact, 28% suffer from bloating and meteorism, 32% from abdominal pain and tightness, 25% from digestive difficulties, 25% from constipation, and 27% from diarrhea. The most commonly used treatment is pharmacological, with symptomatic medicines that tend to chronicize the condition by acting on the symptoms and not the causes. In addition to pharmacological abuse is the indiscriminate use of probiotics, which very often are useless if not harmful. Added to this is the lack of preparation of the medical profession, which often lacks adequate knowledge of the latest research on the microbiota.
8 out of 10 Italians have intestinal problems of any kind. We have seen it, the video specified it to us. Let's go and ask our Dr. Orlando, what are the types of problems?
Regarding inflammatory bowel diseases, the most common ones are ischemic colitis, lymphocytic colitis, Crohn's disease, and ulcerative colitis. These are all due to an attack by our immune system against the cells of the intestinal walls, which protracted in a constant and continuous manner gives rise to chronic inflammation. As far as these intestinal diseases are concerned, this chronic attack by the immune system then leads to a modification, alteration of the anatomy of the intestinal varieties, and also to faulty function. Regarding anatomy, intestinal permeability is very important. We know that the cells of intestines, called enterocytes, are joined together by junctions, which are the desmosomes, and they are covered with a layer of mucus that serves as protection. At the time when there is such a strong and major attack by the immune system, we have a decrease in the amount of mucus, their protection. We have these junctions, these meshes that widen, and then macronutrients go through them and go into the bloodstream, going to activate then our immune system, mainly Th2 lymphocytes, leading to food allergies and intolerances. In addition, we know that the other very important issue is about gut dysbiosis. The gut microbiota consists of billions of microorganisms that have outstanding functions for the body, so protecting us from bacteria, improve digestion, improve as far as assimilation then of nutrients, and also enter into the part of biosynthesis of certain vitamins, including mainly vitamin B12. So this dysbiosis alters all these processes. And not only that, it also increases quite exponentially the amount of proteolytic germs within our intestines, which are the cause mainly of an abundant amount of biogenic amine production in the intestines. As a result of protein putrefaction, so among the main ones, we have cadaverine, putrescine, histamine, which not only go to cause local inflammation at the level of the intestinal immune system, but they go through the gut cells going into the bloodstream, so they give rise to systemic inflammation within our whole body. In addition, one very important thing is that the gut microbiota also has a direct connection with our brain via the intestinal nervous system, the so-called brain-gut axis. And so, in fact, it has been seen that at least 20% of those who have gut problems of dysbiosis also have problems with, for example, depression, insomnia. So all problems related to the psychic sphere as well.
Then I can say in such a way, maybe even a little bit quickly, that we can all trace it back to dysbiosis, that is this imbalance of the microbiota.
Of course we do, because obviously eubiosis is a system in balance, dysbiosis is a system in disequilibrium. And what is it that we bring into disequilibrium? Just the bacterial flora that we have in our gut, this 1.5 kilograms of bacteria that is distributed in this huge surface area, the size of a soccer field, that the moment we allow classes of bacteria that don't conform to our gut to multiply, it's obvious that they will bring an alteration in the relationship between them, and consequently also in activating our immune system. And so it's critical what we eat, unlike what we are told by many gastroenterologists who know nothing about the relationship between food and obviously the gut, because obviously what we eat is actually also being eaten by our bacteria before us. So when we ask ourselves what we bring to the table, we also think about what we are bringing to the table of these bacteria, which is most of the food that is used by acidophilic type bacteria are sugars. So when we eat bread, pasta, pizza, potatoes, rice and legumes, we digest them in the stomach. They end up as such in our intestines. Then we have pancreatic amylase that breaks down these complex carbohydrates into glucose molecules. And there we find bacteria ready to feed on them. And so when there is a food present in an excessive way, this inevitably leads to the multiplication of these bacteria, and this leads to an overall dysbiosis and consequently to all the pathologies of our intestines. So it is clear that if you have an excessive amount of bacteria, then you have to keep it under control with an immune system that has to be hyperactivated. And when we think of the classic diarrhea, who of people who are listening to us right now, if they don't do Life 120, don't occasionally suffer from either constipation or diarrhea? We tend to think of it as a normal consequence of a gut that disturbs us, the so-called irritable colon. But in fact, it is a very serious condition, because our intestines induce diarrhea when they are so inflamed that they cannot retain the nutrients that we have introduced. And so to prevent further inflammation, all they do is to make us very violently eliminate the food that we have introduced. So this should not be underestimated as a symptom, because it is precisely the reason that should somehow alert us that we are eating foods that are not good for our intestines.
Just to confirm what you just said, Mr. Panzironi, I want to show you this video with the relationship between sugar and dysbiosis. Let's watch it together.
Carbohydrates are the food most likely to alter our gut microbiota, but also to damage our digestive system. First, sugar interacts with the gastric juices, preventing the proper digestion of proteins and fats. Then, in the duodenum, sugars are attacked by bacteria, inducing acidification of the food bolus, which will induce ineffectiveness of the amylase enzymes necessary for protein digestion. Finally, acidification of the food bolus induces disruption of the protective mucus present on the endothelium of the intestine. In addition, the excess of sugars selects a homofermentative bacterial population, which will result in the elimination of the heterofermentative population necessary for the digestion of soluble fibers, the metabolites of which are precisely probionic acid, acetic acid, and butyric acid, substances necessary for the nutrition of enterocyte cells in the intestine.
It was very explanatory, this video. I was watching it very carefully because at one point I also had a reflection. Then we can say that not only gut issues depend on dysbiosis, but virtually all of our health.
That's right. Yes, absolutely. As we have seen, the moment we have an alteration of the gut microbiota that leads to an alteration of our immune system, both local and systemic, this then leads to a whole series of cascading reactions. We have also seen previously today other inflammation-related diseases due to poor nutrition, such as even hypertension, which, although it is not involved in the immune system, however, is involved in a whole other set of substances that are activated at the time when chronic inflammation comes up, but still chronic inflammation due to what we eat.
That we eat. So it's all traceable. This chronic inflammation is all traceable by everything we eat. And then by this state of dysbiosis, that is, our gut microbiota is no longer in balance.
That's right, exactly. As we have seen, it resides not only there, but the gut-brain axis. Then we have other pathologies at the neuronal level that invalidate everything in our life as well. Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. We have to look at our body 360 degrees, not compartmentalize it, because if we compartmentalize it, we no longer understand where the main problem is coming from.
Here you are saying, Dr. Orlando, something that I want to remind our Adriano Panzironi, because during the episodes of The Health Seeker, we had several doctors who came to see us, and among the various, let's say, things that they said was this very fact that you, Mr. Panzironi, had a holistic view. You had a complete view of the body and short of everything to our biochemistry, even of our organism, precisely because you could look at 360 degrees everything that was related to our health.
This is a totally different paradigm from a dogmatic medicine that tends more and more to arrive at specialization, whereby the orthopedist deals only with the knee or things like that, the gastroenterologist only with the stomach and intestines, as if we were a kind of robot where each district is totally independent, like a car. You puncture a tire, change the tire, you break the carburetor, change the carburetor. But it's not like that, because we are a complex biological system. We have a cytokine communication system, so factors communicating, cells communicating with each other, cells saying certain things to each other, and that these messengers can be interrupted or they can be overexpressed. So we should not think that the skin tissue is so far away from the gut tissue. Since part of the immune system we find both in the gut and on the skin, we have districts a little bit everywhere. We have bacteria a little bit everywhere. If we think about the microbiota of the mouth, obviously of the dermis, our surface, if we think about the microbiota of the gut, it's all correlated. So to think of treating pathologies as if each one is divorced from the others makes absolutely no sense, because most pathologies are interconnected and always have a constant etiology, which is the overconsumption of insulin carbohydrates that by various routes, whether it's insulin access, whether it's cortisol access, always and in any case induces biological alterations that lead to the appearance of all pathologies as we know them. So to imagine a medicine that if you have a knee problem, you get knee surgery. If you have a problem with your intestines, they cut off a piece of your intestines because by now your intestines don't work anymore. If you have a problem with your heart or some vein, they put a stent. That is, theirs is a medicine aimed only at treating the symptom, and a little bit like an apple that is kissed. They go and remove only the kissed part, not taking into consideration that the whole organism has to be kept healthy. And if we keep our organism healthy, it will be the same organism, the same body of ours that will bring us back to health, because it will restore the biological functions and repair itself of the damage caused by the bad diet.
Let's go back to the diseases, let's say. So related to the intestine, so intestinal diseases, if for other diseases it is difficult to think that what we eat then goes to create that kind of pathology for this kind of pathology, it seems to me that it is quite clear to understand that it is what we eat that creates it for us, and so we keep the diet. As far as supplementation, on the other hand,
with regard to supplementation, certainly a supplement such as the spice is the prince of supplementation in the moment that these spices act at the antibacterial, antifungal, and antifungal levels and go to rebalance precisely everything about the gut microbiota. Regarding then also the Life Pro, an antioxidant that goes to clean up the tissue cells a little bit from the various metabolic wastes that have accumulated, so they make them work more appropriately. Then we always have cortisol, this little devil cortisol that we have on our shoulder that unfortunately every day affects more and more, and so it affects at the nervous level, at the gastric and intestinal tension level. We said that the axis through the intestinal nervous system, so brain and gut, are related.
And we go back to these testimonies that we have thanks to the book Living to 120 The Healings. So we have collected 1,000 testimonies, 1,000 people who have stated what benefits they have gained as a result of the Life 120 lifestyle. On these pathologies, what can you tell us?
Of these 0 people we had abdominal bloating, 46% had it, and 88% said they were cured. Constipation, 30%, or 304 people, 70% said they were cured. I'm going fast because there are many conditions that we verified through this observational research because they involve various things. Diarrhea, 20% had it, and 92% stated that they no longer had symptoms of diarrhea. Irritable bowel, 136 and 83% have resolved it. Hemorrhoids, 232 people suffer from hemorrhoids. This very disabling pathology of the system, obviously the end part of the digestive system. Out of the 23% of people who suffer, 82% have reported that they have been cured as far as medication is concerned. Again, for hemorrhoids, we are talking about 97% of people who have reported that they are no longer taking medication. Only 3% have reduced the dosage. So basically, we are talking about the totality. Obviously, when we are talking about such high numbers, both from the point of view of people suffering from pathologies, and we can no longer talk about pathologies that are somehow the risk for people, for human beings, but they are pathologies that are the normal consequence of poor nutrition. So we have to, in my opinion, start to stop thinking of pathologies as something that affects us occasionally, that affects us because we are unlucky, but we have to understand that what we eat creates as a direct consequence the pathologies that we are going to suffer from in the future, and the pathologies that reach 50-60% risk are no longer a risk, but they are the certainty of getting sick if you follow the incorrect diet. So certainly it is important that this book demonstrates the effectiveness of the Life 120 lifestyle with numbers, with statistics, so they cannot be refuted by anyone except for someone who wants to come and see this data present at our offices with all the phone records to try to prove that we are telling the falsehood. But I mean, there are 1,000 people ready to declare with medical records in hand the results they have achieved. And I think this should be the beginning of a new medicine that takes into consideration man from a holistic point of view, speaking precisely first of his nutrition and then possibly of possible drugs to be given where the correct nutrition is not able to bring you back to proper health and does not heal the diseases from which man suffers.
Panzironi said a new medicine that has to go back a little bit to the ancient, because make food be your medicine. It was said by Hippocrates more than 2,000 years ago. So I think it is necessary, this kind of reflection of each of us, to repeat it every day like a mantra, make food be your medicine. So I have concluded my time. I thank once again the molecular biologist expert in sports nutrition and supplementation, Dr. Christian Orlando, who has been here with us. Thank you once again. And I thank our Adriano Panzironi, writer and science popularizer.